You, right now, listening to this video, might be winning a large chunk of silver for free. Two of you, actually, so your chances just doubled. All you have to do is click one button. Subscribe. Once we hit 100,000 subscribers, I'm going to jump out of an airplane and announce the two winners mid-flight with a GoPro attached to my helmet so you could watch it all unfold. I'm going skydiving in celebration of 100,000 subscribers so you can celebrate winning while I'm literally falling out of the sky, hopefully not to my death. Make sure you don't miss it because this will be a beautifully horrific sight to see. Is there anything about BRICS, any updates or anything that you wanted to mention or that's come to light since last time we talked?
Well, yeah. Let's see here. As far as the BRICS are concerned, there is. We have, they just talked about issuing a new, as they call it, BRICS bridge, I believe it is called. Give me one moment. I took down some notes here before we chatted. I'll read it to you right here. Russia will promote the topic of improving the BRICS settlement and payment system and is ready to test payments in digital currencies with China, the Eurasian Economic Union, and the Gulf countries, Russian Finance Minister Anton Silanov told Sputnik. It is proposed creating a platform that would connect the financial systems of its participants. For example, technological gateways for settlements in digital currencies of central banks are already in operation. And that's like the M-Bridge, Project M-Bridge, which was developed between China and I want to say Singapore and the UAE. And they've been using M-Bridge recently to trade back and forth. It is a gateway that allows these countries to trade their currencies, their central bank digital currencies, free from the SWIFT system. And it says, we propose creating a BRICS bridge, which based on the BRICS institutions would be available to our countries and would ensure the proper level of equality and would contribute to the development of trade relations. We are ready to start with countries that express such a desire, perhaps with China, perhaps with our neighbors in the EAEU, with the countries of the Persian Gulf, the minister added. He says, Russian minister also said that the possibility of a common unit of account and currency similar to the euro, said that the currency could work as an alternative to the US dollar, can be used to denote some of the commodities. This unit of account for the BRICS member countries, not a single like the EU euro, but an alternative to the dollar in which the cost of commodity deliveries can be denoted, as well as benchmarks for some goods. So it is not to depend on the single currency or issuing center that issues banknotes in a no one knows how manner, he said. So basically what you're talking about is all of these currencies are, see, everyone fixates on the common settlement currency, and that will happen. There will be one, and it will be tied to gold some way or somehow because it is the only other tier one asset, and all of these central banks are buying it. But what you're seeing here is all of the BRICS countries will have a gateway to not use SWIFT. They can trade with one another for oil or for energy or for rare earth metals or for wheat or for soybeans or whatever the hell it is. Like, you know, Brazil is the second largest exporter of corn in the world, and they're selling their corn and their soybeans to China for yuan, which is then immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. And they will use these bridge systems to trade their currencies, whether it be digital real or digital yuan, into the commodities or whatever it is that they're buying, and then they will sidestep the SWIFT system and settle outside the dollar. So all of this settlement being done outside the dollar has tremendous impact on the value of the dollar. And then instead of buying treasuries with all of their excess cash, as they've done for 50 years, they will buy gold, which they've been doing. And you can see that treasury holdings of these countries is falling off a cliff. Gold issuance is going straight to the moon, and they're using the suppression of the Western market to do this. But understand that if you go back for 25 years, gold, if you take the total gain and divide it by 25, it has averaged almost 8% per year without the geopolitical risk, without the sanction or confiscation risk, without the default risk. And when you look at the performance of the bond market, it's been half of that or less, much less. And then, of course, last year being the most volatile year for the 10-year Treasury ever, where in 45 years it was more volatile than the price of gold. So what these countries are doing is trading with one another through a new system. It was first the M-Bridge, but now they're talking using that technology for a BRICS bridge, where all of these countries can trade with one another in their local currencies put the excess reserves into gold instead of US treasuries. And if you realize that that has a tremendous impact not only on the settlement status of the dollar, but the reserve status, because the bond market, there are no buyers at these levels. They'll have to jack rates way up to get people to buy it. And if not, the Federal Reserve will be the buyer of last resort, which is monetization of the bond market, which is the road to hyperinflation. And so this is a way to have a tremendous and profound impact on the dollar even before they issue a standard settlement currency. But I also want to say one other thing. People talk about the dollar has to go to get crushed before gold and silver go higher. Now, I don't have the numbers in front of me with silver, but with gold, right now the dollar is where it was in 2015. It's almost exactly where it was, right around 104, somewhere in that neighborhood. And that's when gold made its low. Now, since then, the dollar is up roughly 5% from that point, and gold has doubled. So as the dollar has only, gone up 5%, gold has doubled. Now, what happens if the dollar gets clobbered and starts to fall fast? You'll see gold and silver slingshot. And this is why you're seeing 55% of all the COMEX gold taken off the market since February of 2021. And I guess I would leave people with two things. One, we've seen gold rise in our currency despite positive real rates, even though the information on the rates is a lie, as is, the inflation numbers are a lie, but we'll use the CPI numbers and say 5% minus the 3% inflation puts it at a 2% real rate. When gold is rising in the face of positive real rates, that is saying that you keep rates here or they go higher, your government's going to have real problems with debt if rates remain positive. But I want people to know all of these things that we are doing, that the hegemony of the US dollar is based upon confidence. And what will this empire be when the world loses confidence with this system? And I would argue in many respects they already have. So this is a trust-based, confidence-based system. When you go around stealing people's reserves or assets and then actually having Janet Yellen in Brazil speaking, urging the European Union and the U.S. to not just use the sanctioned assets, hold them, but to actually use them to rebuild the Ukraine. It's a joke. It's absolutely a joke, and there is no coincidence that you had BRICS calling in Brazil, President of Brazil calling for a BRICS meeting here in Brazil right away to talk about global finances, right after our knucklehead Secretary of Treasury is telling the world that these assets need to be confiscated. Confiscated, she says. I mean, it's about the dumbest thing that you could do. And at least we have Nancy Pelosi looking out for us. She bought 1.25 million worth of Palo Alto Networks calls for $1.25 million. And of course, it's gone way up. Obviously it's just a coincidence. And it's just a coincidence that you see, Jamie Dimon, who bought 1.235 million shares in the open market of JP Morgan from 2009 to 2016. When the market bottomed, last week he just sold almost 822,000 shares at the top for 150 million. Is it impeccable timing? Is it impeccable timing when Bezos and Zuckerberg and all of these insiders are selling and building bunkers? Is all of this stuff coincidental? And I would say it's not, and not even a little bit. And then you see the information coming out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. For 4 months in a row, they've revised down the consumer confidence numbers. But the last time, the January numbers were really high, and then the market went nuts on it, right? And then all of a sudden they revise it down to the biggest revision downward since 2022, and it is a massive revision downward. And we're revising them downward. They say it a month or two after the fact, after the economic impact is severe upward, like the market goes nuts because evidently the consumer confidence is through the roof, but now it's actually negative. Sorry, we were wrong. Point I'm getting at is we're being lied to by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We're being lied to by our politicians. We're being lied to all over the place. And what is happening in BRICS, these people who are dollar bulls, who live on recency bias and normalcy bias, are in for a very, very big rude awakening. And as China continues to gobble up the world, they just bought Yintai Gold on Sunday, a Canadian gold exploration company. Excuse me, Yintai Gold just bought Osino Resources, exploration company in Canada, for 273 million in cash. They're doing this all over the place. Last year, they were buying up all of the copper companies in Canada. They're buying the farmland in the United States. They're buying gold and silver mines all around Central America, South America, and Africa, and oil refineries and oil reserves, and striking deals to build all of that stuff to bring those natural resources to the market and industrialize these countries. They are building a very, very formidable um, infrastructure. And people need to understand that this is not stopping, it is accelerating. It is really, really accelerating. And I will just simply leave everyone with that one thought that we've said over and over and over and over again, and that is 200 meetings between now and October, all BRICS related in Russia, the big one in October, an election in November, and 12 million people in this country illegally right now. If 1/10 of 1% want to do harm to this country, that's 12,000 people. This is something that should be taken very seriously. This is why you buy gold and silver. It is not to get rich, is because the things that are confronting us in this country and outside this country are things that none of us have had to worry about our entire lives. And now it's time to get real. And to just blow by it and look past it is a mistake, because everything we're talking about and have been for the last year, you and I, is accelerating at breakneck speed. But if you didn't dig a little deeper, you'd never find it, right? Because the mainstream says consumer confidence is through the roof. Everything is great. Oh, by the way, we just wickedly revised that negative. But sorry, we didn't tell you when it mattered. And sorry, we whispered it so no one knows this. But just like the employment numbers that were so great, but for 2023, 440,000 jobs were revised downward, or 40% of those jobs supposedly created in this great economy in 2023. We were wrong, but they didn't tell us that until almost February, after the 2023 numbers had already played out. And who really even noticed it, right? So I hate to be a buzzkill, because that's not who I am. But I think it's this whole everything is getting to the point where I'll just simply leave you with this last thought, man, and that is that wisdom is seeing things for what they really are, not for what people say they are. And I respect you very much for having the courage to say this, the same things that I'm talking about, and to tell people what's really happening, and then let them make up their minds for themselves. That's what the whole purpose of this conversation was today, is to tell people the truth, not what they're being told, but what really is, and then go out and make up your own mind based upon your own due diligence. Just don't rely on someone, even like myself, to tell you what is truth. Listen to what people say, and then go out and do a little bit of digging and find out for yourself.
That's that's exactly how I always felt as well. You know, like I'm a realist. I always try to speak the truth, and but I still tell people, you know, go do your homework. But if you are going to do your homework, make sure you get the answers correct as well, because like we always talk about, like North Korea and all these other countries, their media is heavily censored. American media might be more censored than these, you know, and that's something that when I mentioned that, or when I thought about that, it really struck me, is like our media is censored a lot more than I think people realize. Now, there is all-time lows for people trusting the government and trusting media, but you still got to remember there's a lot of misleading stuff out there. Like the top two, the two out of the three largest religious Facebook groups are ran by Russian bot farms, like troll bots. And there was another statistic on Twitter. They say up to 80% of the accounts are bots, fake. Like 80%. That was the like, and you know these people are just pushing misleading stuff, trying to push us farther and farther apart. And a lot of
But here's
people,
something scary, and that's all true, and that's what I mean by
yeah,
digging. Here's something
yeah,
scary and prophetic. This is from Ernest Hemingway. The first panacea of a mismanaged nation is inflation of the currency. The second is war. Both bring a temporary prosperity. Both bring a permanent ruin. Both are the refuge of political and economic opportunists. And he's right. And you know, that's exactly where we are going. Look at the political opportunists. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Look at the economic opportunists, the military industrial complex. Look at the inflation, printing more money in the last 4 years than in the history of this country. It did bring prosperity temporarily. And the amount of money that is being made by these corporations that provide or make military equipment, uh, yeah, there is, but it is. We are on the road if we continue down this path to both political and economic ruin. And I hate to say that, but shit, man, he was right. And I think people need to take a step back and see things for what they really are. And I will be real and true and keep saying the same shit over and over and over again. And I'll keep adding new stuff to it because if you don't see this as being a generational shift away from what always has been into what is going to be, you are really asleep, in my opinion. And that's with all due respect. And again, I like the comments and maybe any of you who take exception with anything I've said today, please put it in the comments and I will not run from it. I will address it in our next podcast and I will address them honestly and candidly. And if I'm wrong, I'll say it. I don't think I will be because everything that I say is rooted in mathematics, economics, fact, and logic. Putting the dots together, that's supposition. What do I think will happen? Taking into consideration all of the facts, that's a guess. But everything else that I'm saying up to that moment is rooted in fact. And so let's talk about it. Let's have an open discussion. What made this country great is respecting differences of opinion. Mark Moss and I have become good buddies, and Mark understands gold, but he's a Bitcoin guy, and I understand Bitcoin better now because of my relationship with Mark. And most people would say, well, no, it's one or the other. No, it doesn't need to be. You should always listen to other viewpoints and understand it, because if you don't, you never grow. You learn more and more about less and less until you know everything about nothing. You become pigeonholed, and you should always listen respectfully to someone else. And that's what made this country great. Debate. It wasn't cancel culture in high school. It was debate, where you openly debate things and do so in a respectful, thoughtful manner. And that's how you grow as a person, as a nation, as a company, whatever. And that's what these conversations with you are all about. And I really enjoy them, and I hope people do too. So I welcome anyone that has anything that they would like to ask, whether it be pro or con or contrary to what I'm saying. Put them in the comments and let me address them next week.